to identify seekers and persons of peace. And so there's a coalition that a number of us are involved with. And so there's a variety of resources, trainings, and so on and so forth. This community is just trying to build a bridge between those who are content creators or providers, and build community within that community, and then just try to build some bridges to those who are more in the practitioner world, and say, because one of the gaps we've observed is in the practitioner world is like, okay, if I'm running campaigns to reach somebody in northern Iraq after 3-6 months, like, oh, I've run out of content. Where do I go? I use the Jesus film. What else is out there? So anyway, that's kind of what we endeavor to do, and we've been meeting for some time. But back to you, Tim.
Thank you, Clyde. Yes, and so I would like to know who is a first timer to this meetup. You can just raise your physical hands or digital. Okay, great. A number of new people. So yeah, it's always exciting when new people come, as well as our familiar favorites. So what we would like to do is use the chat window liberally, and you can put in there your information, details, how we would get in touch with you, what you do in media and ministry, or anything else you want to share. Your dog's name is fine, whatever you want to do.
URL, if you have a web link and you're willing,
Yes.
I always like to know who's who and who does what.
Yes. And so a lot of us have gotten to know each other through EMDC, which is a huge network now of media practitioners, as well as those that are coming to learn how to do different things with media. So thank you for sharing your dog's name. My dog's name is Sobo, but anyway, we're getting very Western here, aren't we, talking about dogs? So today, let me put in here a link for where you can look at the last couple of recordings we've had, because we've been doing this now for, I don't know, a year and a half, probably, something like that. And we meet quarterly to try to talk about how we can be creative and help using our expertise with Media to Movements projects. And these teams are really ramping up. There's a lot of them now that are really trying to reach out to unreached people groups. Some of them are not necessarily unreached people groups, but the idea is using social media to really find people that are wanting to know about Jesus, and then creating movements using the technology that we have today. So yeah, put the information in the chat window, and then as you hear things, feel free to throw in your questions there, and then we will try to get to that. So we're going to hear from Candace for about 10 minutes or so, and then we'll have a time for a little bit of Q&A with her. And then we're going to turn over to Jeff, who's going to tell us about what he is doing and what kind of work he's hoping to have some assistance with. And Jeff is an accomplished musician. So I think he's going to maybe play a little ditty for us, or at least show us what he plays on, because it might be new to most of us. And then after that, we've got Keegan that's going to hop on and tell us about what he's been working on over the last couple of years from down under. And I will not go into my Australian accent because it's very bad. So Candace and I don't know each other well, but we have met at EMDC a few times. She's all the way on the other side of the country in the East Coast where I grew up. I'm on the West Coast, but she works with TWR Motion. And so I've met her staff, her team that she would come to EMDC with. And I know Clyde knows those guys pretty well too. So Candace, rather than try to introduce you more, go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll launch into what you have been learning.
Yeah, sounds good. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. It's good to be with you guys today. I lead TWR Motion. It's a new sub-ministry of TWR, if you're familiar with Trans World Radio. But Motion has been around for about 5 years, so we're fairly new. But we see ourselves mostly as video content creators. So we make videos that are used online to share the love of Jesus with people who have faith questions. And that's just a really simple way to say we work with Media to Movement teams and provide content for them to use online to share about Jesus, but also engage with people who have faith questions. And so we've been doing this for only about 5 years, but we've interacted with probably about over 15 Media to Movement teams. We have some content that we've provided in a number of languages that's been people have kind of reached out to us for that content. So that's been kind of a natural bridge for us to get to know some of these teams. And so, yeah, that's what we're about. We just want to, we're trying to learn. We're still very new to this process. But we really want to try to make the media part easy for church planning teams and media to movement teams. And so whatever that looks like, however that works, but a big part of that is content creation. And so we do mostly animation, although my background is more in just traditional video production, going out, shooting stuff, coming back, editing it. So we'll do some of that as well, but we've gravitated more towards animation in recent years. So instead of going all into motion, we did make a documentary that kind of explains it explains media to movements, what the strategy is. We interview a number of different people. And a person that we interviewed as a church planner in North Africa. And so we actually hear his story. And then we interview some other knowledgeable people within the media to movement world. And then we kind of tell how our story intertwines with this team from North Africa, how we started working with media to movement teams, and really the backstory of how we shared the story for this particular church planning team, which is this animated content that we made. So check it out. I put the QR code down there. You can click that or just go to twrmotion.org/crew. I do have like a 40-second trailer that I'm going to play really fast. I will warn you, it kind of starts right off the bat. So as soon as I click the button, it's going to start. So just, and the person who's talking his name is Adam. He's a church planner in North Africa. So here we go. Actually, let me make sure that I'm sharing my audio.
There you go.
There we go.
Where have I said no to God that he would have needed me to say yes? One of the very first things he said was, well, the internet. And I responded like thinking, God, that is a terrible idea. Like, what's your next idea? At that point, the BBC literally had said that it was the most intrusive cyber police state in the world. So to use media here seemed like the worst possible idea on the planet.
So you can check that out, twrmotion.org/crew. It's about 27 minutes, but I think it'll be worth your time. So yeah, I was mostly asked to just share some tips, some things that I've learned. I originally had 5, I dropped it down to 4. But I thought I would share just some simple things that we've learned along the way. Again, we're still learning. We're still trying to understand how to best serve these teams. But here we go. So tip number 1, if you take anything away from what I'm going to say today, it's this. If you want to create content for media to movement teams, you need to learn media to movement strategy. You need to understand it very, very well. And you need to, like, you're going to need to sync up with what their goals, what are they trying to accomplish? You know, I put this funnel animation here at the side. They're trying to get people to kind of go through this funnel, right? Like, what are they trying to accomplish? They're trying to find spiritually open people. They're not necessarily looking for clicks or likes or engagement per se. They're trying to find spiritually open people. They're inviting them to learn more, to connect. They're asking these people who are spiritually open to bring their friends along on the journey. So it's very group focused. And they're trying to make disciples who are making disciples. That's their big goal, right? And so we need to come at it from that angle, understanding it's not just about having a fun video for them to watch or even a gospel presentation for them to watch, but it's really part of this much bigger thing that's happening, and we need to understand that. And so that'll challenge us with, you know, how is the media that's being used in these types of strategies maybe different from like broadcast or traditional media efforts? Like, how do we need to shift our thinking a little bit in way, you know, maybe we've done traditional like filmmaking, how do we need to shift what we've done and how we've done things in the past to really be able to meet these needs? And what type of content should we be producing for these things? So these are good questions to ask and wrestle with. Especially as you take courses, these are things that you want to be asking about and thinking about. And so just really practically, here are some opportunities to learn. So I would highly recommend, and not just because Clyde is on this call, but MMU's Foundations of Media to Movement course has been incredible. I actually took it, it completely transformed my understanding of media to movements, and it changed our vision as a ministry. And so it's really, really helpful. It kind of gives you a big picture overview, but kind of dives into these other things. I would highly recommend that. Tom Kazoyan does an excellent job teaching that. There's also other resources. Kingdom Training's got some stuff. Kavanaugh Media, which is John Rawls, he's got some marketing things online. He's got a podcast. Media to Movements has some articles and case studies that are available there. So all these things are really good resources. Take advantage of those. We can send those out in the link. Maybe Tim or somebody can shoot those out. Tip number 2, this is kind of obvious, but listen to the field. Connect with people who are already involved in media to movement strategies, whether that's field teams, content creators, whatever. Like, ask questions. What has worked for these field teams? What are they learning? What are their challenges? Where do they have needs? That's like one of my favorite questions to ask a team. What are your needs? And each team has different needs. But I've found that sometimes, like when I ask those questions, I find that there are legitimate needs that I can meet or our team can meet that might be just really small. And so that's a great way to try to understand where you might be able to fit, where those skills, where your skills and those needs meet, and how you can serve those teams. So just listen to the field, ask good questions. Tip number 3, and this is something I'm trying to grow in, and my team is trying to grow in, is think like a marketer. So, you know, we want to think more than just, we want to think in terms of a campaign, right? So like in the funnel process, media can be used kind of all throughout that, all throughout the journey. So we need to be thinking about what makes good ad content. What's the place of longer form content? What should our storytelling look like? We need to be thinking holistically as a campaign rather than just a one-off video. Like if we do have a one-off video, how can we chop that up and use it in different parts of the process? Because you're not gonna run a 15-minute video as an ad. You know, you're gonna run a 30-second. You want like a 30-second short piece of material that's gonna draw people in as an ad, but then where does the longer form content go? You know, you just need to be thinking about that kind of stuff and thinking holistically as a campaign rather than just a one-off video. And then lastly, tip number 4, try and try again. I love this guy just flipping over the hurdles. Just try stuff, you know, like don't be afraid to fail, get connected with a team and just try some stuff. Media to movement teams, I will warn you, they're not usually content creators. So it may take some trial and error to see what works. You just have to be flexible. You have to go in understanding that you may need to shift some things around. You might try something and it might fall flat. You might have to rework some stuff, but just learn, iterate, and then share your experiences. We all want to learn from each other. We're all learning, we're all growing. But just keep trying, keep going after it. We need more content creators to do stuff for media to movement teams. And then lastly, I don't mean this to be like just a trite, like pray, but really like, I think media to movement strategies are one of the most strategic things that we have, one of the most strategic ways that we have to use media. And it is, the main purpose of it is to do exactly what Jesus has commanded us to do, which is to make disciples. And so my thought is he's going to bless the work that we're doing as we're trying stuff, as we're trying to engage with people to make disciples. That's along with his heart. And we can trust that he will lead us, that he will give us vision, that he will connect us to the right teams, and that he will use it. And so as you seek to grow in content creation and work with Media to Movement teams, pursue the Lord, ask him to provide opportunities. I did that early on. I mean, I'm still doing that all the time, but early on, I didn't have a clear vision with what we were going to do as Motion, and the Lord just really opened an opportunity for us to be a part of what Media to Movement teams are doing. And so it's been really encouraging. So just want to encourage you there. Yeah, so those are my 4 tips. That's all I've got. I'm sure we could talk a lot more about other things that I've learned, but if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to try to answer them.
Thank you, Candace. Yeah, let's open it up for questions, and you can just unmute yourself if you'd like.
I have a question. I don't know. I'll raise my hand. Hi, Candace. Really like the documentary that you guys made. It was really fantastic. So I'd encourage everyone to watch that. But one of the questions I had for you, in your experience, I think those 2 tips of think like a marketer and be aware of the MTM strategy. Where do you see, I don't think they're in conflict with each other, but where have you seen there a balance there of like, this is the strategy, this is the MTM strategy, but we want to think in a long-term campaign and use these platforms the way they're built. Can you speak a little bit to that? It's not tension, but the strategy behind that?
Yeah, I mean, we haven't done a great job of that, to be totally honest. And we're still learning, what does that look like? Because a lot of times our team has jumped to, we're video content creators. So we start with the big thing, right? Like we start with the big video or series or whatever. And then it's like, oh, well, we need to make some ads. And so then we kind of have to like backtrack to develop ads for this thing, which is not a bad thing. Like I think that can still work. But what I'm wondering is, moving ahead, if we really should start with like ad development and thinking about trying to grab people. Okay, so once you grab people, where are they going to go? So thinking of it as like, okay, here's one step, here's the next step, here's the next step, and where can content meet throughout? And so, and it doesn't mean that you have to make everything a part of that. It means, you could go find other content to help like offset some of those things. But I think just being intentional to understand the journey that people are going on. And Media to Movement teams are going to be thinking about this as well. But, as content creators, I think we come with even a little bit more of an understanding of what is good content. And so we can even come and help these Media to Movement teams as they're thinking about those things, and be kind of just another brain pondering that. So I don't know if I answered your question. I'm still trying to learn that. And, but I do think maybe starting with ads and then trying to like, have a system for other pieces of content throughout the journey might make the most sense.
That's great. Thanks so much for sharing that insight, Candace.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, Candace, I don't want to bring up anything that hasn't already been discussed, but since I'm kind of new to the deal, I see kind of 2 spectrums to this as we try and get content online. One is the mindset that whatever we put together, we just throw it out there because God's going to use it, regardless of what it is. The other extreme is, if we do this really right and we market it really, really well, we're going to get all these people to think that they should come and get involved. And it almost like kind of sounds like manipulative marketing. Those are 2 extremes on the continuum. How do we somehow figure out what that looks like in Media to Movements, and say, okay, this is where we truly see God at work, and this is how we contribute?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I mean, I think that's the challenge, right? I think the Lord has given us all brains. He's given us research. He's given us things that we need to be like, he's given us choices to make. And so we need to be good stewards of like our time and our resources, and trying to make the best decisions that we can, but ultimately trusting the Lord with it. So it's kind of a both and like I think we need to be strategic. Like I would push back pretty hard against somebody who's just like, oh, I'm just gonna, put up my stuff and hope somebody sees it, which the Lord can use that for sure. But what an opportunity that we have with just the marketing tools that we have at our fingertips. Why wouldn't we use those things to find people who are spiritually open? That's the key, is that's where marketing comes into this, and the strategy comes into it, is that you're not just engaging with anybody and everybody, you're engaging with people who are already open to spiritual things. Yeah. And so, it's a balance of both being strategic, but also realizing that God is the one who has to be at work. He's already at work in people's lives. He's got to be the one to draw people. He's the one who's getting ultimately that ad in front of somebody. And so it's not we're trying to do this without the Spirit. Any media to movement strategy training, they're gonna teach you prayer is all the way through this process, and it is an essential part. So it's a both and it is a tricky balance. Yeah.
If anyone's interested in having a deeper discussion on the marketing side, there's a movie I watched on Prime Video this weekend called Christian Men. It's about a mega church in California that's using marketing to get more people involved so that they can share the gospel. But actually, it's an interesting movie. If you get a chance to look at it, have a watch at it, because it's going to maybe irritate you a little bit, but maybe in a good way. But
Candace,
that could contribute to the conversation as well. It helped me think through some stuff.
And Candace, you've been doing this some time. You started with one team. Do you still work primarily with that team, or have you expanded to lots of others? And if so, like, what was that journey like?
Yeah, we've expanded. The team in North Africa is still using the initial content that we produced, and it's just really cool because like we made that content for that particular team, but just by word of mouth, other people started to see it and want it in their language, and so naturally that was our first just ministry opportunity, was taking content we already had and translating it and adapting it into other languages and making it available to other teams doing media to movement stuff. So we've done that. We have Share the Story is our first bit of content that we made. It's a 20 episode Bible animation series for Muslim background people. And so it's been adapted into 6 languages so far. We have about 10 other languages that are in the works, and it's just content that is basically request driven. So if somebody on the field wants it, then we have a process for them to fill it out, and we just kind of work with them to do it. Or if you want something that's already developed, like we have a process for getting that content to you. So it's we're trying to make that content available. It's been really low hanging fruit. And we're about to finish up a new series that's actually an animated 12 episode series of Muslim background believer testimonies. And there's a couple ways that we're going to be using that. We initially made it for another ministry who has a discipleship curriculum that they've been using in the Arab world. So it actually correlates with their discipleship curriculum, but we can also use these videos in other ways. So we're trying to figure out ads for those, making these available for church planning teams or media to movement teams, because we've heard that testimonies are really, really helpful, especially in the Muslim Arab world. And then moving ahead, we are going to be creating some Buddhist content similar to Share the Story. It'll be Bible animation series for Buddhists, for the Buddhist worldview. And we will be making that initially in Thai, but probably other languages as well. We had a church planning team in Thailand reach out to us, and so we started to work with them. So that's very, very initial stages. We're just like basically trying to raise some funds and stuff for that. But sorry, that was a long answer.
We've got Aaron has a question as well.
Yeah. Well, first, I just wanted to say as well, agreeing that your guys' little documentary was super helpful. As I'm talking to people in churches, and it's this whole new paradigm, right? And the internet's this scary thing, and it's been super helpful for people to just catch the vision. But here's just a general question, and I'm thinking about, like, for content creators, you're trying to partner with people who are working with a particular people group. I think of, like, Tim shared about the Yawa Muslim of East. How are you going about, like, what's the process of kind of learning the worldview, the heart stories of that people? Is that just interview and give and take, and you create some stuff and throw it out there and they say, maybe this, maybe not quite this?
Yeah, that's a really good question. We actually work really closely with the field on those things. And so, yeah, it's super helpful for us to understand and do research and have some idea of the worldview and things like that. But we also just really ask for feedback along the way and incorporate them into the development of the content. So it's not us pushing an idea on them. It's really us coming up with an idea together. Really, it's usually more field driven, and they understand a lot of times the needs of the culture or what they're trying to accomplish. They have some idea of that. And then, there has been some level of testing as well. So when we developed Share the Story, there was a ton of back and forth with, because we were working with expats, but also local believers in North Africa. And so, and they got groups of Muslims to come together and look at our content. Like, they looked at the illustrations, and then we sent the animations, and they gave feedback on that. So there was a lot of review and partnership kind of along the way, which makes it hard. Like, it can be really complicated to do it that way. But I think the reason that the content is so helpful for teams is because we did it that way, because we made it for this, this group of people and kind of that worldview, and took our time to try to make sure that it really resonated. So yeah, we're still learning about that too. So
great. Yeah, let's see. Thank you, Candace. We are right around half an hour after we started. So let me see. I think Andrew has a couple questions, but let's see if we can turn back to that after we talk a little bit with Jeff. And so, Jeff, are you here? Let me see.
I am here.
Face. All right, great. Okay, great. You're here. So Jeff and I connected over email a while ago, and we had a good chat about what he is doing in his part of the world. And so I thought, hey, this is a perfect opportunity to bring somebody in who is pretty much at level, 1 out of 10 or something, where he's aware of media movements, but he hasn't really taken much. I think you took some training, so you've got the concepts of it, but you haven't jumped into like a marketing meetup group or anything like that that's helped you get from 1 to 8 or whatever. And you have some social media needs, but you already have some video content and things. Tell us a little bit about what you're doing and what kind of help that you are looking for.
Okay, so yeah, I live in Turkey and have for 34 years with my wife, and our kids were raised there. And we're trying to reach a group in Turkey called the Alevis, who there's about 15 or 20 million of them. So it's one of those, the largest religious group that you've never heard of, out of 84 million in Turkey. And they're very different than your average Muslims. They're very unorthodox. They don't go to the mosque. They have their own worship times in a home or sometimes in their own facility, but they sit in a big circle, men and women mixed, and play songs and dance and have a big communal meal together. Just really not what you think of when you think of Muslims. They don't do the fast. Well, they have a different fast that they do, but they don't do the Ramadan fast. Very, very interesting. And they have their own music style, which they are very fervently in love with. They love their music. So I started working on learning their music. So they play this instrument called the saz. And so I got a teacher and started working on the saz. And so I write music now, very Alevi sounding music. And then I write scripture lyrics to it. So I started putting them up. Well, I do some performing, and then I put up stuff on YouTube mostly. But both, I do two kinds. I sort of explain the song, and then I tell the scripture, and then I play the song, and then say thank you for watching. And then I also just do music videos, a little more, yeah, music video, what you think of when you think of a music video. So did like some, like Tim said, some training with the kingdom training opportunity, and realized to get to finding the people of peace and then starting groups, I need more people involved, for one thing. But I also need to understand the whole thing better, which I plan on taking some more of these courses. I think the course I took with Kingdom Training was relatively short, but it gave me the basics. I mean, so I am already doing the content creation and have been for a while, but it's how to use Facebook and Instagram. I've already done YouTube. I've got music videos playing on TV, and then I do my website. But how to get it to find the people of peace? There's two things that I think are pretty different about the way I'm doing it. One is that it's me right up front, so I'm not, obviously I didn't do it with a digital, what is it called, digital hero or something, where you don't know who you're talking to, but it says on there something like, these are people that are interested in Jesus or something. I mean, it's not like that. It's just me talking about Jesus. But I do it, so if you're familiar with sort of an insider paradigm, Alevis are very loosey-goosey with a lot of them will tell you that they think the Quran's been changed. So you can sort of believe anything and be an Alevi. So an Alevis for Jesus movement is certainly not out of the question with Alevis, which is what I would love to see. But like I said, I've got a Facebook page, I've got Instagram and other stuff, but I guess I sort of need help with that part of it, I think. I don't know if it's exactly ads, but how to get people to connect with wanting to basically want to take it further, want to get a group together and get into the word and learn about Jesus and how to get saved. So I guess that's sort of my basic gist. Yeah, play some sauce. Yeah, I can't think of where else I wanted to take it, but I would love some people who could help me with the like hashtags and how to kind of get the thing to where it would actually draw people in enough to want to connect more with the message of Jesus.
Gotcha. Thanks, Jeff. Yeah. So basically, you're in an interesting position because you have the content, you've already created videos, but you don't know now how to take it to the next level where it gets in front of the right people.
Right.
Yeah. And so you're trying to create a strategy and a framework around that. So you're really looking for people that understand social media really well and how that all works.
Yes. Yes.
Excellent. Good. So put some information in there in the chat window, because I did watch several of your videos and loved what I saw. It was very well done. So this is the kind of exciting project that someone could really sink into, I think, kind of on a very, very part-time basis, at least at first. So I could see the right kind of people being, potentially freelancers or other cross-cultural workers that have a little bit of spare time that love these kind of projects. They don't have to be based where you are, right? They can be anywhere.
Exactly. That's a big benefit. So yeah, if you guys know of anyone that would kind of want to help jump in and be part of that with the Facebook part of it and the Instagram part of it and just getting it, social media savvy people that can get the responses back, I guess, get the people that are like really wanting to engage.
Yeah. Clyde, did you have any questions?
I have a lot of questions, but it's going to have to be me and Jeff in another conversation because I love all things Turkish and so. And neredesin? İstanbul'da mı? Where are you?
Yo, Bursa.
Okay, because I'll be in Istanbul in like two and a half weeks. So
really,
anyway,
okay, awesome.
Anyway, we'll talk at another time. Love what you're doing. Yeah, no, I think, and this is self-serving, but we do have a variety of resources. Unfortunately, we don't offer our next course until September, but it does, as Candace was saying earlier, kind of provide Mission Media U, but that is this kind of this overarching, like, how should you begin to think about this? And then, the Kingdom training is a super helpful micro course, like 75, 80 minutes. But the waters can get deep. And you do want to find somebody that is, who can help you, probably even locally, at least to get started with your social media platforms. But it's fascinating that you're doing what you're doing and you have a movement mindset. It sounds to me that like your next challenge is just, I'm just going to go with what Candace said, is start taking some steps in that digital space. I'm assuming, do you have like the Facebook pages and the Instagrams already in Turkish? Turkey?
I do. I'm going to send you the links here.
Yeah, put those in there because that's obviously your starting point.
Make sure you put your email address there too.
Candace, do you have any quick thoughts or comments for Jeff? What would you suggest?
I am so sorry. I have been catching up on messages.
You're honest. I appreciate that.
I'm sorry. Yes, I've been kind of in and out. So there have been a lot of direct messages. So yeah.
Good. Well, keep on putting your information in there, Jeff, and we will have some folks that are interested in connecting with you, and then we can follow up. One of the ways that follow-up can happen or ongoing discussion can happen is in some digital space. People have used WhatsApp, now Signal for a lot of folks. We have a Signal group at Global Creatives Collective where people are typing in their questions and other people will jump in there. I just joined a fun community at Campfire, which is like, there's a Discord server. And so I wanted to bring the creator of that here, and he's here today with us, I believe. I don't see him on my screen. Is Keegan here still?
I'm here.
All right, there he is. He's right next to me. I didn't look right next to me on the digital screen. So Keegan, we met at EMDC, like all good people meet up at, and I totally guessed on your location and accent and stuff, but I may have botched some things. So yeah, you can correct us if you want, but otherwise tell us about what you've been getting your hands into the last couple of years and the whole like ecosystem of Create and stuff.
Okay, yeah, so I'm South African. I actually live in Thailand. I am connected by Australia just because whenever anyone plays Australia in the rugby, I vote for the other team. So we are connected to Australia in that regards. But aside from that, no, South African, grew up in New Zealand, live in Thailand. I work with Create International. A bunch of people are in Create in this call or relate to Create in some fashion. So I think we've explained, and then I think I saw Steve as well put Create Mobile's links and things in the chat. So I work for, lead another arm of Create called Create Labs. And most what we do is research and development. And part of that is our Campfire Project. I think I can show you my screen. I won't share a lot, but this is what it looks like. And we'll put the, I'll put the link in the chat. Here we go. So just so you know what it looks like, this is Campfire. We've got really two primary arms to Campfire. There's the training arm and then the production arm. So on Campfire itself, there's a bunch of different trainings available primarily through our different schools. So we've got a filmmaking school, the leader of which is Steve, who's actually in this call right now. We've got an animation school. We have a children's book creation school, And we also have a seminar or short school on cartoon and comic book creation. And we deliver all these schools through courses or cut up courses. So all of our courses are available separately as well. Everything from cross-cultural communication to sound design, camera basics, all that sort of great stuff. So we do a number of different trainings as well as the other training things that we've talked about today. But then really what we wanted to talk about was the production element side of that, the community element to that. So another part of Campfire is just connecting, just do this, let me stop sharing, is connecting artists with producers or those who'd like to produce content. So that's sort of another part of the Campfire ecosystem, you could say, or our vision. So actually, as a good example, Louise, who's in this call right now, that's a good example of a producer, we would say. So someone who might not have extensive experience in the arts, but has an idea of what she would like to use in her respective people group. And so Campfire pulls together the various artists that are needed to create that content. And through that, you get projects like Mox, which she has linked in the chat. So we started, that whole project started just prior to Campfire, admittedly, but it's a good example. We work through Campfire now, but it's a good example of just pulling different artists from different ministries together to come and work alongside each other for a project. So you can do that through our community side, and we use Discord for that, which I'll put in the link as well on the chat. So you can find at campfirecreators.org/Discord. And there you'll find the community of both artists and producers. So that's sort of what we're doing there. It's still actually very new. It's I think we're coming up to a year old, so we're still pretty new. But it's full of people who are interested in making content for unreached people groups, who are interested in creating content for movements. So it's right up your alley. It's the perfect community of artists and producers and those who are wanting to be involved in the sphere. It's a really good place for that. So even just, as Jeff was speaking, I thought that Jeff is a good example of someone who has an idea, who has some experience, who wants to see something come out there, but just needs help with on the artistry side. And so you can come alongside of Campfire and we can help you get together a small team of people that can help you. And on the flip side, if you're an artist that's looking for projects to come alongside of, we can help with that as well. So that would be the goal of Campfire and that sort of production arm of it. So, yeah.
Thank you, Keegan. Yes, and I have really been enjoying what you have put together and what the community is doing there. And it's pretty variety wide as well. So if you're really interested in animation specific or video games or something like that, like you can hop into those channels that are specific or create your own new channels if you're into something that isn't already covered in one of those. And then you can also put there like what your specialties are so that people can find you. So if you're a filmmaker, if you're a podcaster, those are things that, yeah, it's a great spot. And I've experimented a lot over the years with digital spaces. Slack is another good one, but Slack feels very much work oriented, whereas this one feels more fun oriented, as you explained it to me, Keegan. So that was a really good way of kind of getting me over there. And there are a couple Slack channels, like Indigenous run some good stuff. There's one for Kingdom Designers. That's another Indigenous thing for people that are more graphic designers and those kinds of things. So I'm involved in all of those things, and that might be something for some of you, but I would say definitely, can you put the invite link in there, Keegan, for folks?
Sure.
Thank you. All right, thanks for that. So let us see now. Let me go back to Clyde. Any thoughts?
Yeah, just as we wrap, we'll just do our little data dump here at the end. But I love what you're doing, Keegan, and the whole team. Big shout out. Carol and Calvin are here somewhere, and Steve is here. So anyway, we're big fans of this, the Ministry of Create International. Yeah, so just, there's a lot. Save the chat. Before this thing ends, go to the bottom of the chat box, the 3 dots, right click on it and hit save chat. And there's just so many resources in there. We will send out an executive summary within the next day or two that we do our best to curate all these things that you guys have shared in this summary, and you'll get it because you're registered. We'll send a little follow-up email. And there's a lot of you doing so many great things. I will come back to, and I'll just drop this into the chat one more time. This is where I would recommend going if you're really just getting started with media to movement. So visualstory.org, visualstory.org/MTM, and that'll take you to our wiki right there where there's like 6 on-ramps. Like, how do you get started? Where do you begin? What doors do you knock on? And there's a community there that's willing to help you. Jeff, I did have this thought, and Hannah, maybe you can find it, is we do have a quarterly meetup for people who live in the marketing space, Jeff. And we're meeting in the middle of July. And you may just want to jump into that and at least meet some of the folks that live there. And take advantage of some of the things that we share within that community. I'm not sure, they might just point you to some ideas or people or resources that could be very useful to you. Did I leave anything out, Tim?
There's quite a few other ways. As far as networking goes, yeah, we've got a lot of things that we're already doing, which is exciting. So a lot of ways to pull you in. Just shoot me a message or Clyde. We'll both put our email addresses in here. And if you just have any questions, just we can direct you in the right spot for that.
And Hannah can help as well. So Hannah, maybe you can put your email in there also.
I wanted to
you guys all have Hannah's email.
Yes, I wanted to have Calvin or Carol talk a little bit about media for movements and what the difference is there. And they also have a number of new platforms that they've been launching, as well as meetups. I didn't tell them I was going to ask them to be on camera. So we'll see if they're still here. They are here. Yes. Wait. There we go. No. Maybe they hopped off. What about someone else from Create? Oh, here we go. Calvin and Carol are back. Hey, Calvin or Carol, good timing. You hop back in at the right time. I was asking if you could share what Media for Movements is briefly, and then we have a few more questions. Okay. Hold that thought, Calvin and Carol, as you try to get back on. Okay, let's go back to a question that Andrew had, or is it Aaron? There was a couple of unanswered questions, so go ahead and hop on if you had a question or two that was not answered yet.
Tim, I've got a question. I didn't put it in the chat. Can I ask?
Go for it.
What I find in my colleagues and people across our area is that they are so invested in the local work that creating content is a challenge. And we've had people from our home office come through and try to help out to create content. But not everybody's going to actually have a site and try to manipulate or how would I say, manage an M2M site. However, they would like to contribute, have something online, do something. What would be your argument to get people to actually create content? And what are the easiest ways to actually create content?
Yeah, good question. I mean, thinking about my own experience working in Malawi, East Africa, we have a regional network of WhatsApp groups in Malawi and in Mozambique. And those are pretty much all of the ministry people that are nationals, expats. Once there is good synergy with people that are all working in that same region, it feels like there's usually a few people in there that are more media savvy, that potentially if you guys had group get-togethers, you could talk about a way to build something together that is, God's team related, because it can't fall on any one person because we're all too busy doing what we do. So then once that kind of thing happens, perhaps there's a way to even hire somebody to kind of do some part-time work that might be remote or local, depending on if you have nationals there that would really be able to do that kind of work. That's kind of how I would suggest, but I don't know, Candace or anyone else?
Yeah,
any other
Candace, I'd be
questions?
curious to hear what Candace says, because like I think Jeff is sort of lamenting,
Yeah.
I've been on the mission field, like I didn't go to the mission field to become a marketer. Like that's not my calling. But if your calling is to make disciples and the media strategy will help you do so, that I think is what God seems to be percolating. But then you have to find those solutions like the team in North Africa. Candace, what do you say to Charles?
Yeah, that's not totally an off the wall that's something that a lot of teams struggle with, is, they went to the field to make disciples. They didn't go to do media really. And so I think what Tim suggested of just like networking, there will be some people who I think God will raise up in the field who will have a media, desire. Like we're just living in a media world. I think that's definitely a possibility. There's another thought that came to mind was mediatomovements.org, or Media to Movements, the ministry. They actually will help coach teams with how to get started. They'll walk you through the whole process. Even if if your team or whoever doesn't want to necessarily be the ones running the ads and stuff like that, I think they partner with Kavanaugh Media. They partner with John Rawls, and he actually runs ads and stuff like that for teams that do not want to do some of that initial stuff or don't feel like they have the skill sets or capacity. So I would encourage you to maybe just reach out, anybody who is kind of in that boat, reach out to Media to Movements and just see if you can get a conversation started with them. They're just trying to help church planners like do what they want to do, which is make disciples. And so they're trying to ease that burden and coach along the way, and hopefully help make that part of the process a little bit easier, because it can be daunting, but they're great.
Let me just say this, because it seems to me that a lot of people think about making disciples. They think about in a present meeting people face to face. Okay, and there's an app that has been created. I think it's called Follow Me. I'm not sure the name. It's being developed in order to help people actually connect with those who are interested through media to movement kinds of internet connections. But I'm wondering if there shouldn't be some kind of a ad or argument made to think differently about making disciples, okay? Because I think if I think about older people who don't really, manipulate social media very well, or they're tired of it. They've seen what they've done with it and they don't want to have anything to do with it. But they don't see how that can actually serve discipleship purposes, okay? Maybe there can be some kind of an argument made for that. Maybe people don't see actually how it can be done, you know what I mean? So maybe there's a place for some ads to explain to people how this can be, how it can be used, how it can be done. I wouldn't say easily, because there are several levels of it. There's the marketing element, there's the technological element, there's the content element, there's the which media you use to convey your message. So there's a lot of technical things that people have to take into consideration. And I think those are obstacles to people who say, yeah, this is interesting. I see the importance of it. I see how it can be used to serve the Lord in my area. But there's just there's too many ways that make it, that are so difficult to kind of get a handle on. You follow what I'm saying?
I'll just say this, and maybe Candace, you can comment, is I know in our Mission Media U class teach, this is not a silver bullet. It's a lot of work. It is not like, oh, I turn the key today and next week I've got contacts coming in my door. There's some great case studies, like the One Kingdom team that Andy keeps talking about is in Eastern Europe. You know, they struggled. The team in North Africa struggled. But what they said at the end of this, and I can't remember what it was, it took them 6 or 8 or 10 or 9 months to kind of get it going. But then they finally, at the end of that 10-month period, they go, once we got it going, we had more spiritual engagement in 20 or 10 days or 20 days than we did in 10 years. So, but that being said, it's a lot of work. So, and it is a team. It's like filmmaking is a team sport, media to movements is a team sport. It's a number of players. And that's part of, I think, one of the roles that you read about on Kingdom Training is the visionary leader, because if you don't have a visionary leader, you're not going to get the people who are going to rally around the vision and fill in the roles that need to happen. So Jeff, I think you need to be the visionary leader. That doesn't mean you do all the work. You've got to ask the Lord to raise up those people who will step in and fill in those roles. But very, very well said, Charles. And then we got to end. But Candace, would you challenge or add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great statement. It does take work. It does take time to do. But I think at the end of the day, you got to remember that it's not about media for the sake of media. Like it's about finding people who are spiritually open. And that's the point. It's not to just dump a bunch of media on people or even have interactions long-term online. Like that's not the point. The point is to meet people who are spiritually open and then get those relationships offline. So the media ends, right? Like we want to have the relationships that continue to continue to exist after the video or whatever ends. Like the media is just that connection point. So just to add that 2 cents.
Thank you guys, appreciate that.
So we're going to head into our bonus round for those that want to stick around, at least for a few minutes. But I want to officially end us right at the top of the hour. Guys, this was awesome and amazing. So thank you for coming. Thank you for your questions. This was much more interactive than we've had in the past. So I really want to give a shout out to all of those that did ask questions. We had a few questions that were not yet answered. So we want to let people know that they can hop off very shortly if they have to. Otherwise, we will stick around for a bit longer. Candace, do you want to close us with a word of prayer?
Sure, would be happy to. Father, we just thank you so much for who you are and your faithfulness to us. Thank you for calling us into the work that you're doing. Thank you for giving us the opportunities to make much of your name. We just thank you for just your goodness to us. And I just pray over every single person who's on this call, that you would give them wisdom, that you would give them desires to make disciples, that they would have wisdom with how to evaluate what their skills are and how they can be a part of, potentially be a part of media to movement teams and strategies. And that they would just take all these things and that you would give them opportunities, and ultimately that we would see just collaboration like we've never seen before, cross-organizational collaboration, which is tough, but God, you are glorified in it. And so I just pray that you would bless the work that each person is doing, give them wisdom, be among them, and we pray ultimately that many would come to know you, that they would become disciples who go on to make more and more disciples in their areas. So we thank you for this time. It's in Christ's name I pray. Amen.